Okay, let's try and unpack this. You've got a situation right. A driver like Carlos Sainz, racing at home in Spain. A track he knows incredibly well, usually a solid point scorer there.
Yeah, usually very consistent.
And he finishes 14th. 0 points. It just, well, it doesn't add up, especially given it's his home Grand Prix. Feels like something significant happened.
It absolutely jumps out as an outlier. And to figure out what went down, we've been digging into quite a stack of reports and reflections from various F1 blogs, looking specifically at Sainz'S weekend in Barcelona.
Right. Those F1 blogs are our guide here.
That's the plan.
So our mission is pretty clear. We want to sift through all these analyses and reports, pull out the really key insights.
Yeah.
Why was it such a tough weekend? What are Sainz and Williams saying about it according to these F1 blogs? And importantly, what does it signal for the future?
Exactly. We're sticking purely to the narrative built within these specific sources we've looked at. No speculation, just what the F1 blogs reported.
Okay, so let's start with the hard fact. Carlos Sainz, 14th place at the Spanish Grand Prix. And it wasn't just the number, was it? The reports really stressed how unexpected, how genuinely, well, painful this result felt, especially at home.
Oh, definitely. And digging into the context these F1 blogs provide, it really hits home. They point out this was the first time in his entire F1 career Sainz failed to score points in Spain.
Wow, first time ever.
First time ever. And it also broke a nice little streak he had going, which the reports had noted 4 points finishes in a row for Williams leading up to this. So, yeah, big deviation.
You can almost feel the frustration coming through in the coverage. Sainz was quoted, or at least paraphrased, saying it felt like he had neither rhythm nor luck.
He didn't mince words.
No, he called it the worst weekend since I'm at Williams. That's pretty blunt. Tells you how bad it felt from the cockpit.
And that feeling, according to these F1 blogs, points directly to the main culprit they identify again and again, the Williams FW47 car itself, its fundamental characteristics.
It specifically.
The reports consistently highlight its weakness in medium and high-speed corners. Now think about the Barcelona circuit layout.
It's full of them. Turns 3, 9, the final sector.
Exactly. It's almost tailor-made to expose that specific weakness. The track basically put a massive spotlight on where the car struggles most.
And Sainz was, well, pretty candid about this based on the F1 blogs we read. He admitted the team had actually warned him. Said they told him the car always goes fatal here.
Fatal is strong language.
It is. He said they didn't have very high expectations. And he even acknowledged, the team knows the car better, they've lived with it longer. He called its performance here, specifically at Barcelona, the worst Williams of the whole year.
And this whole situation, as presented in the analysis, really illustrates a core challenge in F1 design, doesn't it? Building a car that works everywhere.
Yeah, the all-rounder is tough to nail.
It really is. Some cars just click with certain track types. The reports mention Sainz comparing it to the McLaren, describing their car as super versatile, saying it goes well in Barcelona and Miami and Imola.
That adaptability.
Precisely. And the analysis suggests that's what the Williams lacked in Spain. It needs tracks that play to its strengths, which seem to be more about long straights and maybe shorter, sharper corners.
So the deck was stacked against them from the start because of the car track mismatch, something the team apparently knew. But then race day just made things worse, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The reports detail a whole cascade of problems during the actual race. Starting 18th obviously didn't help. Sainz himself mentioned the consequences of starting so far back.
We were already fighting an uphill battle.
Right. And then, almost immediately, lap 1, turn 2, there was contact, damaged the front wing.
Did he say who hit him?
He's quoted saying he didn't know who closed me off, but the key thing is the damage forced a pit stop. A really early, unscheduled stop.
That kills your strategy right there.
Completely. You lose so much track position and time, and then, adding insult to injury, the reports mention another issue cropped up.
What was it?
Motor overheating. Apparently, every time he got close enough to another car to maybe think about an overtake, the engine temps would spike.
Oh, that's a nightmare. You can't race like that. You can't follow closely. Can't get in the slipstream properly.
Exactly. So you've got the basic car disadvantage on this track. You're starting way back. You get wing damage and an early stop. And you can't even push properly when you're near other cars because of overheating.
A perfect storm, really.
The analysis in these F1 blogs makes it clear he was just always outside the fight for points. Some reports mentioned his pace wasn't terrible when he had clear track. Quite decent, was the phrase used.
It was too late by then.
Way too late. All that time lost early on. You can't make it back. Sainz summed it up pretty bleakly, calling it a race in no man's land.
Even though they sort of expected a tough weekend, the reports still capture that raw frustration, especially because it was Spain. He mentioned it giving him a lot of rage, or being a real shame, that the absolute worst performance had to happen at his home race.
You can understand that feeling. But there's also this thread of pragmatism in the analysis of his comments. He apparently noted that even with a totally clean, perfect weekend, given the car's limitations here,
The ceiling was low anyway.
yeah, he suggested maybe 1 or 2 points might have been the absolute maximum possible. Which leads to the perspective that, while obviously super disappointing, maybe not much has been lost in terms of realistic potential at this specific circuit.
Okay, that makes sense. A tough pill to swallow, but maybe realistic.
Yeah,
And that seemed to tie into his focus afterwards, right? Looking forward.
absolutely. The reports highlight his emphasis shifting immediately to learn so that it doesn't happen again. He stressed the team needing to dig into why this particular circuit continues to be difficult for the car. It's about understanding and improving.
Which logically takes us to the next race mentioned in these F1 blogs, Canada.
Right. And here, the perspective presented in the reports does a complete 180. The outlook for the Canadian Grand Prix is dramatically different. Optimistic, even.
And the reason for that optimism, according to the analysis, it's not a magic upgrade, is it?
No, not at all. It's purely about the track. Sainz expects the exact same Williams car to perform much, much better in Montreal.
Because the track characteristics suit it.
Precisely. Those long straights and shorter corners we talked about earlier, that's Montreal in many ways. It should play to the FW47's strengths, unlike Barcelona, which exposed its weaknesses.
And the team shares that optimism.
Seems so. The F1 blogs reflect expectations of fighting well within the points, maybe top 8, potentially even pushing for the top 5 if things go well. It's a huge swing in expectation.
And a really crucial detail the reports picked up on Sainz explicitly said no upgrades before the summer break.
Yeah, that's key. It reinforces the whole point. This expected performance jump isn't about new parts. It's purely about the circuit suiting the existing car's design philosophy better.
He really seemed to hammer that home in the quotes reported.
Oh, yeah. He's quoted directly contrasting them, saying confidently the car will go better in Canada, and then reiterating that Barcelona is the worst circuit for us by far. The contrast couldn't be clearer based on these F1 blogs.
Oh, so pulling all this together from the F1 blogs we've looked at, Barcelona was undeniably rough. A really difficult weekend for Sainz and Williams.
Definitely a low point.
But it sounds like it was also, maybe, a somewhat predictable struggle given what the team knew about the car's characteristics versus that specific track layout. And then just bad luck with incidents on race day amplified it all.
That's the picture these sources paint. The team seemingly braced for a tough one, knew why it would be tough, and their focus immediately shifted to tracks where the inherent strengths of the car should shine through again. It really highlights that ebb and flow of F1 performance based purely on where you're racing.
So the big takeaway from these reports seems to be Barcelona was that perfect storm against the Williams design philosophy. But the team, according to these F1 blogs, doesn't see it as representative of their overall potential. They expect things to look very different on more suitable circuits.
Exactly. Which leaves you, the listener, with this thought based purely on what we've discussed from these F1 blogs. If a car's performance can swing so wildly based just on whether the track layout suits its fundamental design, well, how much weight do you then give to driver skill or race strategy in those specific situations compared to simply having the right car for that particular weekend's environment? Something to ponder.